It was 3 a.m. It started as a rumbling. A woman is in bed. Her daughters in their beds too. The rumbling got louder and louder and louder. And then, bang! Soldiers' rifles beat down the door, came to the house, soldiers stomping all through the house, breaking glass, breaking beds, breaking suitcases, terrorizing the woman, terrifying her children. And then one young soldier takes his gun, points it at the head of the woman. He's shaking. As he goes to pull the trigger, he stumbles. The shot goes past her head. She lives. That woman is my mother, and those little girls were my sisters, are my sisters. The power of that story is that it was untold. It was about the night of Ghana's first coup, February 1966. I learned about it in 1997 when I was home in Ghana visiting my parents. I had heard my dad, God rest his soul, tell the story so many times. I was even bored. It was when I asked my mother, "Where were you?" The answer she gave is the story I told. Have you ever realized that when you ask someone a question and they pause before they answer, what happens when you hear that pause? When I asked my mother, "Where were you that night?" she paused for a long time before she told the story that I just told you. That was the day I changed what I do. I ask questions, and now I tell untold stories. Why? When you ask someone a difficult question and they pause before they answer, the truth lives in the pause. The pause is the untold story. Another word to describe what I do is I'm a journalist. I tell stories in multiple forms, on the radio, via television. I write. I've done it in different countries for a long time. I love media. I believe in its power to change lives. What I've learned, though, is that we have told stories, the stories we tell again and again and again that are the same. We have untold stories, and those untold stories have the power to change lives, to change minds, to have you rethink what you think you know. That story that night made me look at my mother differently. I learned with that story that my mother is also a shiro, that our mothers, that women are shiros. That changed the way I performed and practiced my journalism. Let's go from Ghana to Florida. A woman called Marissa, a mother, she'd just given birth to a beautiful baby girl 10 days before. She finds herself standing in her living room and she fires a warning shot into the ceiling. The shot is against her abusive husband who has just threatened to kill her. As a result of that shot, she is charged, convicted. She faces 20 years in jail. Her baby girl has just lost her mother, and a woman is about to lose her freedom. The told story, the story that the newspapers and the radio and the TV told, was to look at this woman, to look at Marissa and say, "Why did you fire the shot? Why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you find another way to get out of that space? Why did you stay?" That's the story we tell again and again and again. But there's an untold story. What if we turned to that man and said, and asked, why do you think it's okay to put your hands on a woman in violence? Who taught you that doing that is the way you negotiate a relationship? What do you teach your sons when they watch their father use that kind of violence against their mother? What difference might that untold story have made to the lives of Marissa and her baby girl? A woman may still have her freedom, a baby girl might still have her mother, and the little boys who were in the room when the shot was fired may learn to become different kinds of men. That's the power of untold stories. I do two things. I ask questions and I tell untold stories. We live in this global environment. We talk about a global media all the time. And we think about global meaning traveling from one place to another, doing different things. I'm a traveler. I'm somebody who loves travel. I've done it since I was 17. I've also learned some of the people who travel the most still have the same mindset as they have always had. So what if we were to rethink the definition of global citizen? What if to be global was not about your geographical location, but your willingness to reimagine your world? What if in reimagining your world, you could make the kind of change that could impact other worlds? That's the kind of media that I want to be part of. Here in Ghana, women are 51% of the population. Why aren't they 51% of the conversation when it comes to media? Why? What change would that make if they were? How would your radio show sound if you made room for half the country's population? How would your policy be different? How would your practice change? What kind of world would you create if you recognize the power of those untold stories? I've stood on stages, I've collected awards, I've heard applause. I've done it in London, I've done it in New York, I've done it in Washington, I've done it across Africa. None of those things created the kind of change that leads me to stand on this stage. It was my mother telling me a story that I had never heard, and that untold story transformed the way I did journalism. The radio show that I host now, The Spin, an all women of color media panel, which has women from all over the world, African American, Ghanaian, Caribbean American, Indian, Puerto Rican. The reason the show exists is because untold stories can change lives. And that is my commitment, to tell untold stories, to reimagine my world in order that I can do something to change our world. What if each of us sitting in this hall tonight did that? How could that be different? How would that be different? The Spin is a show that airs across the US, that airs in Ghana, and that airs in Nigeria. Why? Because I want to develop a media where a woman can stand on the continent of Africa, talk to the entire world with other women, and change their minds. Rethink, reset, reimagine. I am not interested in telling the stories that have been told again and again and again. We know them. We have heard them so many times. But untold stories can literally change not just my world, but your world and our world. And if we're not interested in changing our world and making it the kind of place that allows us to be who we truly are, to live our dreams, then what is it that we're trying to do? What is it that we're trying to do? We can talk about the things that we've done, the stories that we've told, the stories that we've written, the places we were educated, the international media houses that have accepted, all of those things, we can do that. They do not have the same power as an untold story. My name is Esther Armah, and I do two things. I ask questions, and I tell untold stories. Reimagine your world, reset your mind, rethink your possibilities. Thank you.